Hello, Alan.
Hello.
You've had a bit of a monster time getting here, haven't you?
Yes. Sadly, somebody was taken ill on a train this morning, and then this building's lift system decided to spontaneously get out of action for no good reason.
Oh, it never rains, but it pours. I mean, I've had one of those. It's just London, isn't it, sometimes? You know,
Yes.
The tube system can work brilliantly well. I mean, normally you're hanging like a lemur from the post and, you know, with your face nuzzled in someone's armpit if you get the wrong time of day. But by and large, you're conveyed under the sort of pavements and roads of the city fairly efficiently. But when it goes wrong...
Oh, when it goes wrong, that's the end. And look, actually, the infrastructure set up is a problem. I don't think enough's been invested in public transport. Certainly, we know the road system is being, you know, sort of clogged up by bus lanes and cycle lanes and everything else that sort of stops normal traffic going through. I think it's well known. London's got the worst congestion in the world, or at least in the Western world. Certainly, from traffic perspective, it may be that somewhere in Asia has worse, but certainly in the Western world, the recent survey showed it. We were slower than New York even.
Really? I did not know this information. Is that why we're throwing in a few extra 20-mile-per-hour zones under Louise Hay's latest plans? Hasn't got enough of those in place, apparently. I mean, I ranted about this yesterday, the 20-mile-per-hour zones. I've just been papped doing 25 and a 20, which is actually impossible to avoid. You know, the nature of...
Papped or policed? How did a PAP get you?
Well, no, camera.
Oh, you mean the camera?
It's a speed camera.
Yeah.
But you can't actually regulate. You know, I drive an automatic, not because I'm a loser. I've actually got quite a cool car, but I bought it when I'd broken my ankle.
Anyone who drives manual in London is mad because it's so stop-start.
I think in life now, anyone who drives a manual is sort of missing out because there's something quite nice about not having to do all the gear changes.
Oh, you're thinking like an American now.
I know. It's that, you know, when there was I can't drive a stick shift, and I'm like, loser. But, you know, I can. I've got that in my back pocket. I just choose to have an automatic these days. But the thing is with that, when you can't control your own engine compression, the compulsion of a modern-day engine, it doesn't like resting below 20 miles per hour. So it's just you're doomed to fail. It's like booby traps everywhere trying to leave London through its outer boroughs. And no doubt, by the time I get to 12 points, I'll be in jail because that's a serious offence. But if I don't know, walked around the place trying to stab people with a machete, I'd be told that there was nowhere for me to go. Because that seems to be the madness going on right now in today's society.
In fact, Alex, be careful about calling back for the Bibby Stockholm. You may end up there.
I know that maybe we'll be like a Radio Luxembourg. All of us sort of like, you know, hated journalists will be moved onto the Bibby to broadcast from somewhere off the coast of Dorset. To be honest, given how unsafe London is these days, that might be a pleasure. I wouldn't mind sharing a bunk with you. But, I mean, look, September is the date that the government are going to be apparently releasing 2,000 prisoners out into society to make space for other people committing crimes to go back in. And apparently official figures show that magistrates' courts handled more than 1.33 million cases last year. That is a lot of 1.3 million, ranging from minor assaults to theft and handling stolen goods. So it seems to me that out of 1.3 million people, unless the vast majority of people just happen to be called into court for, I don't know, something to do because they haven't got much else to be getting on with, there must be a lot of people going to court having tried to nick your phone or, you know, whatever it may be, who are just allowed to wander about and get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I saw the news that magistrates had recommended, look, we can't sentence anyone till these other people, you know, get out of prison firstly. So there's that whole question of this swift justice thing is being put on hold, it would seem now, because they just don't have the space. But the real issue, as you've just pointed out, is that we've had a massive problem of court backlogs for years now in this country. I mean, I remember speaking about this 5-6 years ago. There were problems there about justice being served, and justice has to be served summarily, and therefore the people who are criminals need to be dealt with appropriately, not just let out because we don't have room. How is that, you know, assigned to anyone? I thought it was also interesting to look at some of the profiles of the people who have been jailed over the recent rioting. Some of them had 50 to 100 offences to their name already.
Some were just ne'er-do-wells and career criminals, weren't they, who had hijacked things to go on a, you know, rampage.
So what is going on here in terms of allowing, you know, it's quite clear if you've got 50 or 100 offences to your name, you're a real problem, and something, you know, more significant needs to be done about you than just going, oh, here's another month in jail. It's not working, is it?
But then, of course, they've all been typecast as being part of some sort of, you know, Heil Hitlering organisation who were politically motivated, when you kind of, like you said, you look at them and go, no, they're just thugs and scroats and monsters who shouldn't have even been, you know, wandering around in their communities. But, you know, this does worry me, because where they've actually tried to do early releases in other parts of the country, I think Nottinghamshire is one of those counties that has been under the spotlight, a quarter have gone into reoffend pretty quickly. And a number of people have ended up homeless. I mean, the whole point of getting through the criminal justice system is not just, oh, there you go, you're locked up and then you're unlocked. There is that whole transition to rehabilitate, to go back into society, to be a productive member of your community, to have a job so you can look after yourself. And it's not good, frankly, if people have been released from prison and they've got nowhere to go, and so they're living on the streets, not just because if they've paid their time, even if they've been released early, but, you know, perhaps they have reformed and they, in my mind, are due to have another start in life, to crack on and have an opportunity to get it right. But if you're living on the streets, what's going to happen? You just go, what, people are going to sort of, I don't know, write you checks to go and get your dinner? No, you're probably going to end up having to nick stuff.
Exactly. No, you're right. And here's the point. Rehabilitation. That is part of the whole prison purpose. I mean, any civilization knows prison is there to punish somebody, in the sense of, if you've done something wrong, your liberty needs to be, you know, removed from you for a period of time. But this isn't just a kind of, all right, we're removing your liberty and then, you know, you get it back straight away. Being in jail has a social consequence for the person who has been in jail, of course.
They're supposed to be called corrective facilities.
Exactly, and the point is you either educate them in mind or in skills and work out a better path in life. And clearly, if you're doing early release, how is that rehabilitation happening? You're just going cursory slap on the wrist, you're in there for a short period, or not, maybe not even in there. And, you know, a lot more discussion needs to happen, you know, for non-custodial sentences as well, going, well, how is someone being rehabilitated through that? What is the rehabilitation process? The goal clearly is you come out of having done your time and you don't do it again. And if that's going wrong and you're getting a significant proportion of people reoffending, then something's going wrong, isn't it, with your rehabilitation system?
Massively. And I think the other problem with this is, as a result of this, as a result of both the police being overburdened, not having enough presence on the streets for various reasons, you can shout cuts, 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 but I think it'd be far better if they weren't playing Let's Investigate Twitter and instead trying to stop, you know, hooligans on bicycles and such the like. But it seems to me, you know, you've got the police not really present. They don't respond to certain crimes now because they just think, oh, well, that happens all the time. Those people, therefore, don't get lifted. If they do, there's a huge wait for them to go to the magistrates. If they do end up in the magistrates, they'll be like, well, we can't give you a sentence because there's no place in prison. And as a result, it seems to me, a whole load of crimes have essentially been decriminalised. And that is just, you cannot live in a country where people know that they can go and commit crime, because the likelihood of something actually happening is quite slim. Even if something did happen, well, you've probably had a good old year of going around and peddling drugs and selling phones to be exported to Shenzhen in China or whatever it may be. You've got a load of cash money in your bank account. You might do a couple of months in prison and you'll be back out again and can, you know, get back to earning your good money illicitly.
Exactly, and here's the problem, isn't it? If you recall the New York theory that was put out, it wasn't a theory in New York, but it was applied in the 1990s to clean New York up, the broken windows strategy. The idea being that up until that point, New York had been very lawless because exactly the same thing had happened. A lot of crime had essentially been decriminalised, and in came William Bratton, who said, no, we've got to start from, you know, from base ideas here, which is, if you break a window, you know, at the very bottom end, we're going to call you in, and 3 strikes, you're out, basically, on this basis. And that's how they cleaned New York up, essentially. It was actually taking into account the very minor crimes that then build up into more major crimes because people become emboldened, and by showing criminals that actually even the most minor crimes were going to get punished, they ended up, of course, having a seismic effect on the major crimes, which is not difficult to work out.
Well, no, most crimes end up being gateway crimes, and actually one thing that is alarming is the number of paedophiles who seem to now be avoiding prison. I mean, you know, there was the case that people are probably familiar with is the man in Wales who had sent all of the category A photographs to Hugh Edwards, had his day in court, and they basically said, OK, you get a suspended sentence. And I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and I had no idea the scale of paedophilia in the UK, that if you actually did it by people who have made paedophilic images, that is basically downloaded them onto, you know, the hard drive somewhere, it's anywhere between 680,000 and 800,000 1,000. And that seems to me, it's rife in the UK. And when you look at some of the sentences, I mean, a Southampton paedophile, Joshua Whittaker, avoided prison despite being caught with 700 indecent images. Eastleigh paedophile Rory Lord avoided prison. He also had over 700 indecent child images. A Belfast paedophile pair, Billy Crowe and William Curtis Whittaker, avoided prison despite having over 500 vile images of children. I mean, it's just... Is that just a fine now? It's, oh, well, you know, that's your particular sexual proclivity. There's nowhere for you to go in prison. There's so many people doing it these days. We can't tackle this issue. It's just not good enough.
No, and there's always been this weird relationship to paedophilia in this country. If you remember, in the 1970s and early 80s, there were serious attempts to kind of decriminalise it. There were campaign groups going around, you know, exactly pushing this as being, oh, it's perfectly normal. Look, it's not normal. It's a sickness. That's quite obvious. You know, anyone who's attracted to young children, you know, is sick, is mentally sick. And as a result, if someone has committed a crime in this respect and, you know, is trading in, they're not going to suddenly be better because you've said, oh, don't do it again. They've got an illness, and you know, we have to be honest about that and recognise that there are things that are going to need to be done to make sure that those people are not able to take, you know, image sharing into even more serious crimes.
And I think, you know, the other concerning thing about this is when it comes to left-wingers, they're so concerned about Elon Musk because the number of hate speech and right-wing views that are now in circulation on that platform since he took over it, when I'm pretty sure that that's probably the least likely place for a paedophile to go and try and groom children. It's basically every other single social media app that is going to be, you know, more likely used for that particular purpose. And our Talk exclusive here is the sheer number of foreign offenders who are still living in the community after serving a prison sentence. It's almost 17,500. And the Home Office deported just 4,388 foreign criminals last year, which was actually, way, an increase of 28% compared to the previous year. But then there's 3,700 who have evaded deportation for over 5 years. 5 years we should have, you know, in that time, someone surely somewhere should have stuck them on a flight back from whence they came, because under current laws, they can be deported if they've been sentenced to 12 months or committed a serious offence. I mean, look, the Home Office have said, we're committed to deporting foreign national offenders and aim to remove them from the UK at the earliest opportunity. What, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? Rigorous measures are in place to manage foreign national offenders in the community, including electronic monitoring. Oh, that's great. Stick a tag on them. And we remain focused on managing cases through the legal process so we can remove any barriers to their deportation. What, like converting to Christianity? Under this government, we've already redeployed 300 additional staff to work on removing people with no right to be here and are committed to delivering a significant increase in returns over the next 6 months. Well, you know, that's all good and well, Home Office, but I'm pretty sure that if I went to, I don't know, because I've lived and worked in a lot of countries overseas, if I was caught doing anything, quite frankly, you know, nicking a hot cross bun from a shop shelf in Nairobi, I'd be out.
Yes.
I'd be getting out of the, you know, Jomo Kenyatta airport before I could say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I was going to pay in 5 minutes' time.
Yeah, no, that's the norm anywhere around the world. It seems that Britain remains a soft touch in this respect. Why? There's no public clamour for such people to stay. There's no, you know, particular desire even for politicians to keep such people. Seemingly they just slip through the cracks and people have not noticed. And there's a question, isn't it, about consequences? Why is it the case that nobody in government, and I'm not necessarily saying politicians at this point, but nobody in the bureaucracy ever gets punished for failure? That you don't ever see anyone being dismissed or sacked or being put under special measures because they failed. Surely this is an obvious example of year-on-year failure within a major department of state and nothing happens. So when that's the attitude, and basically civil servants can get away with, you know, kind of incompetence in this regard, and I think it probably is that as opposed to a malevolence of trying to keep people there, then, you know, how do you expect things to get better? There have to be ways of obviously carroting people to perform better, but also sticks.
Well, the way I see it, when the government fails in other departments and it has real-world implications on people's lives, very often there are inquiries and there's compensation. And I think, quite frankly, if you've ended up on the sharp end of some foreign criminal who should have been deported, but no, he's gone and burgled your house or assaulted you or, you know, even worse than that, then that's a failure of the government. They're not protecting society. It's an abrogation of duty to the public. And frankly, they should be held accountable. You know, it's all very well saying, oh, these weaselly words from the Home Office saying we're committed to deporting foreign national offenders and aim to remove them at the earliest opportunity.
And
over 5 years.
But no explanation for the why. Where's the explanation? Why has the minister or others not gone and said, well, why have they not been cleared for this time? What are the reasonings? Let's understand it.
Yeah.
Maybe it is because there are legitimate roadblocks. Fine, let's put that information out there so everyone understands
and let's sort out those legitimate roadblocks, shall we?